and some type of survey where they would answer the questions as truthfully and honestly as they can, and then put all that stuff together and come back and give a presentation and tell us what our health situation appears to be.
Yeah, with a key underlining and bold appears. Look, I'm just giving you the facts. The facts about the National Health Survey, 2 very partial surveys that were done. You make up your mind. I'm not here to tell you what you think, you remember? In fact, usually I don't tell you what you think, and I shouldn't point finger, that's not nice.
But that's okay,
But
I can handle it.
You ask me what I think about that,
That's right.
which is in contradiction. I told you, I'll give you the facts.
You're the expert, so I listen.
What's next?
Okay,
Let's go.
let's go. Thank you. So, the cancer. You can see for the cancer, we have to have, there is a tumor registry. It covers the entire state. There is a national network of tumor registries. The tumor registry in Louisiana is well graded by the national consensus of all the tumor registry. It's a good tumor registry. When they count the cancer, they just don't go to the hospital. They look at the medical reports. They looked, if you have cancer, you went to radiology. So they go to the radiology. If you have cancer, you went to an oncologist. So they check with the oncologist. If you have cancer, they probably took a piece of whatever was cancerous and sent it to a pathologist, and the guy cut it in small slices and looked under the microscope. So they go everywhere where a cancer patient can go. They don't count the skin cancer that we all get with old age and if we are on the sun. Because some of these, they don't go through all the process. So it's the invasive cancer. When you see invasive cancer, that means it excludes the small cancer that you would have on the face that a private physician is going to remove, and we cannot count that very accurately. So it's all the invasive cancer, and they are not happy by looking one place, they look everywhere. So I would say the only one that they are missing is somebody that had a cancer and was run over by an 18-wheeler, and he died by the 18-wheeler instead of the cancer, and we never knew. So the only way we can do the statistics is to find out according to the number of people. And so here you have the rates for the number for Pier Part for 70339. So you can see this applied to the 5,000 people. And the Bayou Corne community is about 400. So it's not the best comparison. But at least, we wanted to have an idea. And more or less, if we look at the rates, and the period was 1988 to 2008, the cancer rate are slightly lower than those of Louisiana. So it doesn't mean anything much. Slightly lower means it's within the average that we see in Louisiana. And you can see that in Louisiana we have a lot more cancer than there is in Utah. So different states have different rates, and probably a lot of it, you'll see something later, I'll show you the interpretation. So incidence is the number of new cases per 100,000 population. So it does not look like here, it's much higher than somewhere else in Louisiana.
Okay, so can you break down the types of cancer in that?
Hmm?
Break down the types of cancer?
Yes, it's next.
Okay.
The computer read your mind and put it. So the second thing you want to do, so you may have a normal rate of cancer, but what if all the cancers that you have, your cancers are low, but it's all an lymphoma. And lymphoma is not a very common cancer. So you want to look at the distribution of cancer. First, cancer is, we'll talk about that later. It's a fairly common disease. If you look at the cancer, the most common are usually the lung, the prostate for the male, the breast for the female, the colon, the colon and the colorectal cancer. Okay? And so what you want to look is to have to compare the cancer rate, to see if there is not one cancer that sticks out, there is a lot more. And then you would have to think why there is that specific cancer. So if you look at it for the 2 zip codes, that's not Bayou Corne area, that's the 2 zip codes that are around. You can see the lung, nothing sticks out very much. Lung, prostate, breast, colon and rectum, that's your 4 big ones. Then after you have kidney, bladder, the skin melanoma, the stomach, pancreas, leukemia, liver, thyroid, corpus uterus. All that is from 1988 to 2008. Now, also, you don't get, if you are exposed to cancer-causing agent, you don't get cancer the next day. I mean, the best example is a cigarette. Somebody starts smoking cigarette at age 16, and they develop cancer when they are 60. So some of the cancer will go faster, maybe 5 years, 10 years, and then you get cancer. Some of the cancer are going to be very slow. Start smoking a lot, and it's only when you are in the 60s, the 70s that you develop the cancer. So it's usually a very, very long period of time. But it's not all of them the same amount of time. So if we look at the distribution of cancer, there is nothing extraordinary. It follows the pattern that you would expect in Louisiana. Some is going to be lower, some is going to be slightly higher, but the general distribution is about the same. And we go to the next one.
Well, excuse me. Let's talk breast cancer, because there seems to be a rather large difference between 39 and 41 zones. You know,
49 in the treat.
49.3 in one and 72 in the other. That's not significant.
You have 64 parishes. You have more than 64 zip codes, but if you have 64 parishes, some of them are going to be higher, some of them are going to be lower, and there is no clear explanation why. And differences like that will you see them all the time. A lot of the study is trying to understand. I'll show you a few more slides from the American Cancer Society and the National Cancer Institute.
You didn't answer his question. The question is, 72 is much higher than 49.3.
Yes,
Isn't that significant?
you see that all the time.
Well, then I guess the question is what should that number be before it begins? You begin to ask the question, why is there a difference?
Yeah, you can ask the questions, and the questions were asked in some $10 million were spent in Long Island, for example, in the late 90s. Not 10 million, $130 million were spent in a Long Island study of breast cancer. It's fairly well known. If you want to look at the detail, you just Google breast cancer Long Island, and you are going to see. After $130 million spent, because somebody had alerted the Congress people and there were laws, $130 million, and there is no answer. The suspicion was it was the pesticide. And so you have a huge amount of discussion, and there was no answer.
But you said that the conclusion was what? And that's pesticide?
They thought it could be a pesticide, and it was not confirmed.
Okay.
Now I'll give you another example. In the good old days, when we say the good old days, when people were, there was no good regulations for industrial
pollution.
Protection of workers, bunch of people were going into the big vats that were full of vinyl chloride. And so the people would go inside. They wear masks, but they were not that good because it was a long time ago and they really didn't understand what we know now in those days. What happened is that these people that were inside the vats full of vinyl chloride, when they went inside, they were empty and they were cleaning them up. These people came up with an angiosarcoma of the liver, a very unusual cancer. You have the other example of mesothelioma and exposure to asbestos. So you have sometimes there are studies, particularly in the industrial world, where the exposure is huge. I mean, you get somebody to go inside the vinyl chloride vat, and it's a huge exposure.
Somebody want to talk to you?
It's my brother.
I understand.
Right?
And the way I have to turn it off is that if I don't turn it off, 20 phone calls within half an hour.
See, I don't carry a cell phone either.
You are right. Yes.
If I can make an observation, that's per 100,000 people.
Yes.
And if I saw the zip code a while ago, there were about 4,000. So
Yes.
if you look at that amount of people per 100,000, if you broke that down to 4,000, you'd be looking at, on the 72, you'd be looking at 2.9 people. On the 149, you'd be looking at 2 people.
Yeah.
So it's an incidence increase of 1 person from 2 to 3 in 4,000 in a community of 4,000.
Which ain't nothing.
Those numbers are in 100,000.
A born epidemiologist. You work in epidemiology?
No, sir, I'm actually from Baton Rouge. I'm the reporter for KQKI News on the radio.
The air in Baton Rouge may not be that bad. Conclusion number 1. Conclusion number 2. People